Hello, and you're very welcome to the Town End podcast. It's season 2, episode 38. Well, in a week where it was meant to be a test of character for this Dundalk team, they've gone the whole way to Ballybuffet and returning with 3 points. To go through the game tonight, we have Pingu in the limo. Pingu, you're welcome back.
How's it going, Chris?
And Gally's here too. Gally, how are you?
Evening, boys.
How's things?
I think the best thing to say about tonight's victory was that we've got the 3 points and we're heading back down the road. Am I right?
I think the best thing to say about tonight is it was 2-1, so my prediction came true for only the third time this season. But I think the commentators at the end of the match said that it's at this stage it's not about it's not about the performances as much as it is about just grinding out those results. And it looked in that second half, and it sounded in that second half like we were going down that road again that has been all too familiar, especially away from home this year. So to go back down from Donegal with all 3 points is definitely a plus.
Yeah, Gary, in the pre-match notes, I suppose, from the club this week, Andy Boyle had said it was a real test of character to see how this team would respond to that defeat, and they said that they would have a positive reaction and they've reacted well in training all week. That can all be good, but it's when it comes to match day and those 90 minutes that really matters, and it did count tonight.
Yeah, I mean, like we said it here last week, there's probably no, there's plenty of tough teams in the league, but there's probably no bigger tough or a tougher test than going up the Ballybuffet on a Friday night. We talked here last week, yourself and Donald, and I didn't know if they'd get the win tonight. I mean,
I look back, we said this would be the one that we could slip up on and maybe only get a point out of tonight. So we're 2 points ahead of our prediction.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We'll get into the game, and I mentioned it's a fantastic win. I don't know if it's the commentary or it's just Jesus. It was a droll affair. I don't know if that's just maybe if you're at the match, it's different. Look, it's a fantastic win. It's a badly needed win. It's I mean, you're probably going to look back at it. Like we said it probably for the last couple of weeks, but it's probably going to be one of the biggest wins of the season. Hopefully when we look back in a couple of weeks, it's going to be a vital win. And obviously, look, it hasn't gone our way up down the road further. But it's 3 points. It's that simple. It's 3 points. We'll take them every week. There's no point in playing well and coming out with draws every week. You gotta get points on the board. And look, road or luck, maybe at the end, when that 5 minutes went up, I think you're all in a panic. But look, 3 points, fantastic 3 points, absolutely.
I suppose the other thing is, of course, we got to win tonight so we can finally do our man of the match competition again. Pingu, I suppose, just before we get into the game, 3 changes in the squad tonight. Dave McMillan back up front. I think that's probably that leadership is exactly what was needed tonight in kind of from a front to back sort of way. Runa Hoiga come back in on the right hand side, but then Lewis McCarry as one of the 2 centre backs tonight was probably the real surprise choice.
Yeah, I think, look, people have been calling for that, and obviously I haven't been on the podcast the last couple of weeks, but when we've been in our group chat, we've kind of discussed why was McCarry ever dropped in the first place. I know John Mountney's a great servant to the club. He adds something different, but for me, there's probably at least 2 on the mid or on the back line that probably could have been dropped ahead of him. He was probably one of our most consistent defender all season. So It was great to see him back in there. And play at centre half because, again, it's been discussed the lack of pace at the back, especially with I don't want to bring it up because I think ever since I've missed, there's been all this discussion about the high line. So, we're at this point where you don't mention the high line, but I think him having a little bit of pace at the back certainly helps with the style of play that Skip wants us to play. But yeah, I think that was good. It was great to see. I'm not going to butcher his name, Hauga. Hauga, it was great to see him getting a run out because I think he played well 2 weeks ago and then he didn't start last week, so it's good to see him back in. And as you say, Davy coming in just brings experience. He brings that leadership. I think the lads were saying, because I was listening on LMFM, that Ryan O'Kane was only 4 when Dave McMillan made his debut in the league, so we all feel old we all feel old. Yeah, I don't know. That might only be in jest, but yeah, it wouldn't. It kind of works out. But 2008 was when he made his debut, so he's probably about about between 4 and 6. You know what I mean? So,
Wow.
So having him in there definitely helps. I mean, look, he's got his own limitations too, but it was just good to see Skip actually freshen things up, because things obviously the last few weeks haven't been working. So it's it was good. But for me, probably the most important call he had was putting McCarry back in the team. I think that had to happen. Regardless of Greg Sloggett's injury, I know he moved Bone up into midfield. I just think I like, again, I haven't been able to even watch the games the last couple of weeks. But I was texting Donal last week. I was like, what did McCarry actually do to get dropped? And there's no answer for it. So it's great to see him back in, you know.
Yeah, Gally, and we did mention it kind of last week as well on the Davy Mack Martin kind of, who would you pick kind of up front, and I think we just needed that leadership from him.
Yeah, and what do we know? We were talking about Davy Mack being a little bit, I think we were talking last week about it, whether John Martin would be the natural replacement for Pat Hooban, but yeah, look, that I think it was well mentioned on Twitter as well, having that. It's not so much the focal. It's having that little bit of experience against a back line of Finn Harps. You do need players like that. I mean, look, we talked about Pat being missing, but when you've got somebody with the experience of Davy McMillan playing against like Finn Harps, look, I know they're down the rock bottom, but they're such a tough team to play against. It's ironic considering where they are in the league, but they've been that team for everybody. They've got one or two players that have, without being disrespectful, are above the level that they're playing there. They'll probably find themselves down there and, whatever, offer a contract, but they won't be there for too long. There's some fantastic footballers. Ollie has this habit of showing them out, but as a group, you kind of know what you're going to get with them. And I think Davy Mack, with the experience that he has, over John Martin, it's all right having the pace that John has. But for me, last week in particular, he didn't get into the game like we needed it. And the only option really was Davy Mack. We talked about, Mountney going out right and maybe O'Kane playing as a false nine, but against teams like Finn Harps, that doesn't really work, because they make it so tough for you. Like, if you're not physically up for it, if you haven't got that physical presence against a team like that, they'll eat you alive. I mean, they'll slowly just chip away at you. That's why it was such a panic when that 5-minute board went up. There's no worse team to get 5 minutes injury time. And it's only for Sean Boyd's not there anymore. You're expecting him to pop up off the dugout there at one stage, but I think having Davy back and a good run out from a good game, not just coming off the bench and kind of, making up the numbers, I suppose, really getting stuck in and taking advantage of it. Yeah, it's massive going into the last few matches, massive.
Yeah, look, I think we'd be probably doing everyone a small disservice if, just before we get into the game, we didn't talk about the online program that's available tonight by Finn Harps, which is helping raise money for the victims of the awful tragedy there in Creasla in Donegal this time last week. A moment silence before there was a wreath laid by Dundalk FC as well today. So it's a fantastic idea. And the digital program, we'd recommend anybody who hasn't got it, just you jump online. It's only €3 for it as well, but I'd say that the money goes to a very worthy cause. Pingu, I suppose, then into the game itself, it's a slog at the start. It's no one's given an inch. Alfie Lewis finds a small little gap and kind of pings one which comes off the post, but it's probably we'll say he meant it, Bakari, for the opener. It's one of them. We've been talking about free kicks for Dundalk and not getting the advantage in and not really using them as well. But another thing that's been probably very disappointing this year is the second ball, and we haven't used that second ball. This time the header comes out from the free kick, comes back into Macari. Does he swing it at goal, or is he just swinging it back into the box? Who cares? It's in the back of the net.
Yeah, no, I'd say he probably swung to have a shot, but I don't think the ball went in the direction he actually meant it to go in. But luckily for us, it did. Watching it back, I mean, when you think back to John Martin's epic goal at Bohemians, and I think this one from Lewis is definitely up there with the goal of the season contenders. There was no stopping that ball. But look, I think in fairness, how many times throughout this year or throughout the years have we had luck go against us, and we've had those shitty goals, that cost us a game. Even just going back to last week, like conceding so late, that was just a sickener.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get a jammy goal. It felt for years like Dundalk never get that, and they're coming along by the handful now this season, But look, it was you have to be there, don't you? And he hit the ball, whether he meant to cross it, whether he went to shoot it, went towards goal and it went in. So I think he's going to tell everybody it was a goal. So or he meant to score it. So look at. We'll take any of them at this point if it leads to a win and it leads to a 2-1 where I get my prediction right, then all good. So Lewis, I'm putting this in early in case I have to get off. Lewis McCarry's my pick for man of the match because of the 2-1. Closely followed by was it McMillan? But it wasn't McMillan that scored the second one. It was actually no goal. But
well, it's because he's there, it happens. We'll get into that in a second. Look, Gally, I suppose. Like we just mentioned there, McCarry, he kind of has to take his chance when it comes to him, and it'll be whether or why he was dropped and stuff like that. But all you can do is get in and play, and to score, it's even better then again.
Yeah, you couldn't make it up. I mean, we were wondering last week why he wasn't playing, and look, not that Mountney has come in and done anything wrong. It's just you'd expect McCarry maybe with the more, I don't want to say the more experience, but at the start of the season, because John's been out injured, John in League of Ireland's got the edge on him, but McCarry hasn't really done anything wrong. Yeah, look, at everybody's had dodgy games, but not to warrant probably sitting on the bench. But like, to come on tonight and score, and look, we'll say he meant it. It's like, it's probably the only place the ball can go that creates like the panic. I don't know if the ball's in slow motion or the commentators' voices have just slowed that game down completely, but there was no, like, it could have hung in the air. I felt like it hung in the air for 20 minutes, but look, it's a goal's a goal. I mean, that's, come on. I don't want to say he kind of, it was one up to the gaffer for not playing him, but look, you come on, you do the job, you get a goal. You can't really, look, and Pink is right, he's had a solid game regardless of the goal. He had a solid match, probably one of his better matches over the last couple of months. But to come on and score whatever kind of goal you're getting, I mean, that's, you're delighted with it simply because he's probably been unfairly put on the bench. And look, Stevie's got his own tactics. Who are we to be talking about it? But look, you'll take them.
That's who we are, Gally.
Yeah, we'll take a season of them. I mean, like Pingu said, we've had no luck. I mean, we've been not conceding dodgy goals, but last minute goals. Games we should have won, and you got to grind some games out. And I actually thought it'd be an onslaught after that. I know it was a dodgy goal to get, but I actually thought we'd maybe hit them for 3 or 4. But look, you'll take goals like that any night of the week. You said it many a time, Chris. Last minute own goals off the arse for a striker. We'll take it at any minute of the game. And look, they've probably earned over the last couple of weeks just being unlucky. And yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a wonder strike. It's up for a Puskas.
Yeah, look, and if we thought that was fortuitous, I suppose the timing, if nothing else, Pingu, it reminded me of the Drogheda match as well. That Ollie's probably thinking, right, let's just get in at half time, 1-0 down, and we'll find a way to get back into this game. But to concede it scrappy OG, 2 minutes before half time, he's got to be raging at that because of the importance of, I suppose, every point and every goal to Finn Harps, no more than ourselves as well. But for Dundalk, it's probably the most un-Dundalk thing to do to get themselves into a 2-goal lead just before half time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's again, it's not something we've seen too often, especially in the last couple of months anyway, where there's been that dip in form. But you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where you go in at half time and at 1-0 you're still in a 2-0 right before half time. It's like, how the fuck do we come back from this? You know what I mean? Like, that's probably the way Ollie was saying it. But tonight, I don't care about Ollie. Don't care what he's thinking. I'm sure Stevie was going in delighted, because you're going in with a 2-goal cushion, and it is more difficult because they kind of say when you go 2-0 up, the first 5 minutes after that is the most dangerous part of it, and there's a 15-minute gap or a 17-minute gap before they get a chance to score again. So so for me, I think it was perfect timing, for one, and just put them under a little bit of put them under the caution. They have to come out fighting, and and they did in the second half. They put us under pressure for long spells. But look, I'm just delighted we saw it out because I think everybody, even when they went, and I know we'll talk about their goal in a little bit, but when it went 2-1, I think everybody was kind of like, oh, here we go again. And to be able to see it out, it's a complete different feeling to last week, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And Gally, you mentioned that, fortune this year for the Dundalk, and this goal is just one of them that we like I say we probably got luck on the double today. It's a bit one of those you're waiting on the bus and then two come along. Look, it's a great ball in, I think, by your hero. I mean, Ryan O'Kane. It's delivered into a dangerous area. The keeper pulls off a good save, and it's just due to hard work and everything by Dave McMillan. He's on his arse, yet he's still sticking his foot up, annoying the defender. That it looks like he just hoops the defender's foot onto the ball and straight into the corner. There's nothing the keeper can do. He's already on the floor at that stage. I don't think John Martin probably is that as industrial, if you know what I mean, to keep hammering at the defender. Look for it. That's Davy Mack. It's like the ball's not gone yet. I'm going to keep going for it and harassing the defender, and ends up making them make that mistake. And then the ball's in the net and we're 2-0 up, isn't it?
Yeah, you took the words out of your mouth. That's that, and that's the difference. That's what Davy will give you, along with Pat Hooban, I suppose. Like even if it's a midfielder there, an experienced midfielder centre half, whereas John wouldn't have that little bit of nous about him to kind of hassle the centre half. Probably not been scared off the ball, but we've mentioned Finn Harps and their strengths, and they're a tough team to deal with. But Davy Mack has that little bit of experience, and look, it's a great ball in by the child. It's he's like, we'll talk about the penalty incident later on, but another cracking ball in from himself. His set pieces are top class. I mean, we mentioned Wardy's early in the season and stuff like that, but this guy has it in abundance. But yeah, it's just pure persistence. Not most strikers, experienced strikers would kind of hang around, but Davy Mack's probably that determined to get goals now. He wants to show up. Not that he doesn't, but he wants to kind of come in there with Pat being out and just give it 100%, and not have us whinging about the lack of a striker on match days when we're talking on this show. But yeah, look, that's exactly what he gives you. That little bit of, I don't know if the word's experience, but that that familiarity. I mean, he's been doing that for years. Like he might have lost a bit of pace over the year, but he's got that. It's still all upstairs. And whereas John, like you said, Chris, John Martin, maybe kind of would have let it go to the centre half, and they just cleared their lines. But like we'd have to mention as well, you said it, the save from the goalkeeper, he must be absolutely kicking himself. It's a fantastic save. Yeah. And then for just to drop wrong for him, well, right for us, but wrong for him. But yeah, we'd have to mention the save as well. Fantastic. But yeah, look, Davy Mack will take it all day. I didn't see the replay of it. I don't know how much of an issue it was with the two boys touching it, but no, look, two Puskas. Well, they could be the most vital goals of the season. I know it hasn't gone our way in Dublin up and in Chicago, but yeah, look, fantastic. That's what he gives you. That's a little bit. And look, we kind of mentioned a couple of weeks ago, John Martin could be the answer with a bit of pace. But games like that, you kind of need people who are going to grind it out for you. Andy Boyle tonight as well. The old school, that kind of experience counted for everything tonight, whereas we've been panning them most of the season. They've come in tonight and they've been excellent. And Davy Mack no better, to be there on the spot.
Yeah, bingo. Like, I mean, I think for people like Davy Mack and, to a certain extent Hooban as well and stuff like that, you talk about striker's instinct and just being there at the right time where you think the ball's going to land, or whether it's just being in that position so many times, he knows just not to give up. That although the keeper saved it, you got to still throw your body on the line and look, it's him just being a menace to the defender that the ball's in there. But that's part of Davy Mack's game, isn't it? Like we've seen him, in European stage and League Cup matches and everything. He just has a habit of always being there at the right time for us, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he always has big moments for the club, doesn't he? And tonight may not be on the scale of a European game or whatever, but it's as Gally said, it could be a pivotal moment for the club and for our season. So it for me, it boils down to experience, and I would say that's probably what Skip's decision making is in having Mountney start the last couple of weeks too. It's no slight against Lewis McCarry. It's just Mountney has the experience of being in these situations before, so. For the likes of him and Davy, especially with Pat out, and as has been said and as has been slagged all year, even though I've been very complimentary of him this season, the loss of Pat Hooban, and I haven't had a chance really to say it the last couple of weeks, but the loss of him and the loss of even he who shall not be named up in Derry has been pivotal to the kind of the downturn in our season has happened from the loss of both of them, one through injury and one obviously got recalled from loan. So again, tonight in a game where everything has been going wrong the last few weeks, it could have so easily gone wrong again. I think having McMillan on to get that second goal, as you say, just to chase it down, and whether he got the final touch, whether it's awarded as an own goal or not, as you say, probably just due to the lack of experience, if John Martin was on, he might not have chased that ball down in the same vein that Davy did.
Yeah, I mean, just Jason Crowley coming in there, just maybe McMillan had a point to prove, a bit like McCarry tonight as well. Put in a really pure class, very professional, in heavy work tonight. And I think that's just Davy Mack, though. That pure class and professional is exactly how you would describe Davy Mack, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think one of the big things for me is the supporters haven't been clamouring for Davy to come in either. Like, it's not a case of Pat's out, let's just get Davy straight in. I think a lot of people wanted to see John Martin because he's impressed off the bench this season, and Davy hasn't got as much of a look in probably as he wanted. So I think it's a point to prove for him. So I think for me, I think it was a great call by Skip, and he's come under a lot of criticism. And as I say, if it had been a different result, I had a few things to say about the last few weeks myself. But I'll not dampen the mood tonight, But I think in terms of his selection, he got a spot on tonight.
Yeah, look, Pingu, we're just going to skip ahead to Finn Harps' goal that they pulled back, because I know you're tight enough for time tonight. Knowing that the game had finished for ourselves, I suppose, from the fans, knowing that the game had finished in Richmond Park 3-1, we were looking at goal difference now, going, right, well, we had 2 goals at that stage. It was important probably to try to keep a clean sheet, but the pressure was coming on. It's disappointing to concede a goal like that right near the end, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's the manner of it too, because it's one where when balls come in the box like that, certain coaches will tell you either go man for man in those situations, or you go zone and mark, and neither of those happened. He just let all the Dundalk players all push to the front of the goal. He just took 2 steps back and had a free header at the back post. It was again not to be overly critical on a night like tonight, but that's just farcical defending. For me, it's very. It was a 2v1
at that back post too, wasn't it?
I think it ended up 2v1. I think there was someone came in late for Harps as well. But I mean, if you watch back the replay, how everybody just steps up and he just takes a couple of steps back, and he had all day to pick out where he wanted to head that ball. And in fairness to Shepherd, though, when you watch it back, he almost got a hand, or I think he did get a hand to it. He almost did. But look, again, I can be very, very critical about the defending in that scenario, but I think up until that point, Harps had a lot of pressure on us, and we dealt with it. So when you're under pressure, the chances are you're going to concede one. Just thankfully, we had that 2-goal cushion, and as I said, the most important part tonight is just that we got 3 points. We saw it out and managed to hold on to the win.
Yeah, Gally, and I think just before that, we'd obviously seen Runa Hoga go off, Robbie Benson come in, then McMillan probably had just run himself into the ground, changed up for John Martin at that stage then as well. And I think as our subs came in, they probably didn't either just take to the pace of the game, because it definitely seemed like Harps had upped the pace on it. The throw-ins were going very quick. Every free kick was trying to be moving quicker. It was all about the quickening of the pace in that game, and it just kind of told near the end for us. But for the majority of the match, I thought we were quite good. We contained them, and it was good marshalling. You've already mentioned, Andy Boyle probably had one of his better games tonight for us as well. But it was just unfortunate to concede at the end, because just to have the point and a 2-goal advantage in the goal difference as well, just in case it came down to that. We don't know
you can't overestimate conceding a goal like that, like you say, in the goal difference. Like, I mean, you'd like to think it doesn't come down to that, but with Pat's, by the sounds of the game in Dublin, Pat's thumped Bohs tonight. It should have been a bit more than what it was. But yeah, look, for me, like, it's probably the first time all season where we looked. We were talking about the subs coming on. They came into a comfortable game. I thought we looked really comfortable. Like I mentioned, the comms. Like the game just didn't seem. I don't know if it's the sound or it just didn't seem it was going anywhere. Like we were comfortable at 2-0. Maybe that's an excuse. Well, it's not an excuse, but like Pingo was saying, the defense, the boys kind of napping. maybe they just thought, look, there's no pressure here. There's nothing coming in. But for me, Finn Harps do exactly what Finn Harps done in the second half. They go at you. They run you down. They're strong. They've one or two really, really accomplished footballers. But for me, it's probably the most comfortable we've looked without being arrogant over it. I thought we looked really solid. The subs have come on to a game. Not that Dundalk had it run away with it, but it's one of those games that you come on just to fill. You're there to fill the gap really more than anything else. You're not really brought on to change it. For me, I think 2-0 was enough. I don't think we were never going to add subs to the game and get 3 or 4 unless we kicked on from the goal early on from McCarry. But yeah, look, the subs had not that they did little or no impact, but it was one of those games where they come on and just repeat what the boys that come off the field have done. They didn't really have to add anything to it. It's just a sloppy, like Pingu was saying, it's a sloppy piece of defending from us. And it's probably really the only foot we put wrong the whole night. They know what they're going to get with Finn Harps. It's pressure, not from first minute, but like they've come up against us last year and hammered us for 90 minutes last season in one of the games. But yeah, look, I think it's probably like I say, it's the first time we come on. I thought we were very, very comfortable, and I think the subs coming on have just added and just complemented what we were doing before that.
Yeah. As I said, Pingu, I know you're stuck for time today. So just before you go, I suppose last show we did a little chat about our run-in and where we think we're going to pull points and where Pats might drop the points on this. I'd like to get your input, I suppose, on what you think. Obviously, Bow's next for us at home, and Pats have to go to Tala to play Shamrock Rovers. Could this be the pivotal game? Could we get this gap back to 4 again?
It's funny you mentioned that, Chris. I have my cork board right here beside me with my red string there and all the different permutations. No, I think I put in the group chat after I listened to last week's episode. Great show, by the way, lads. But I think after I listened to the episode,
say great show. He didn't say a great show last week.
Great show, shit match, great show. But no, I think I think I put in the group chat that I think this coming week against Sligo, I feel like that this is a potential bananas game, because Sligo can be very, very good when they want to be. Like Sligo, for me, if they were consistent, are a top 3, top 4 side. They don't have that level of consistency. So I'd be happy enough to take a draw at this point against Sligo next week, and well, maybe not happy. I would take a draw next week. I don't know if I'd be happy about it, but I take a draw next week. I'd like to see us get a win, and I'm hoping Rovers do us a favour. I mean, Rovers are just like trotting along, aren't they? Like they've put zero effort into Europe to try and go win a league where, I don't know, it shows a little bit of lack of ambition for me. But hopefully they're ambitious for the league next week and beat Pats 5-0.
We mentioned it's probably, Sligo hold quite a key in what's going to happen here. I mean, we've secured top 4 now, and it would seem that's in the bank, but that might not count for anything unless Derry obviously win the cup. So with us playing Sligo at home on Friday, the following week, Pats go to Sligo.
Yeah, I think again, I had in the group, one of the big things for me is we play Bows on the Friday night. So we could potentially be either 4 or 5 points clear of them by the time that they play Sligo, because Sligo play at home on a Saturday. So you would hope we're at least 4 points ahead of them at that point, and put all the pressure on them. They have to win that game at that point. So that would be the ideal scenario, would be that we maybe have 5 points, or 5, even could be more than that, but or could it be more? No, probably won't be, but
well, it depends on if we get a victory, I suppose, against Sligo at home, and they were to lose in Tala, we get it to 4, and then before they start that game, we potentially could be.
It could be game over at that stage. It could be game over as well, But I'm just I'm very that game next week worries me probably more than anything. I think the game against Bows, I'd be confident in getting a result against them. Like they don't seem like they're going at any great furor at the minute, but I'm definitely worried about Sligo. But I worry for Pats against Sligo too,
That's the thing. Well, look, you're either telling someone that they're awesome or something.
Oh, I'm on them.
Do we need to let you go?
Yeah, no, I can stay on. Hold on, I'm going to turn off my camera because I have to drive. But I'll stay on for a few minutes. It's too good a crack, lads. I can't get off. All right, I'm going to mute myself for a minute.
Perfect. Look, Ali, as I said, we probably had this one down as this could go either way for us. Turns out now we've got 3 points early on the board. We keep a point between them. I know the goal difference is down to one behind it, but we keep the point ahead. That's probably the moral victory you take from all of this is, as easy as the match was for Pats, and if they cruise to victory, great for them, but they're still only a point behind us, and they haven't really gained that much ground from it.
Yeah, like I mean, they probably won't learn anything from tonight. I mean, Bows from just going by Twitter now, Bows were pouring out. Of course, scored a screamer, but I don't think they were really at the race at all tonight. But Pinky was right now. I had this game down tonight for us as the vital match. Yeah, I still think it is. I think that to get over this hurdle tonight is massive.
Yeah,
but I mean, what John Russell Sligo, like
the road. You start. You were talking. We were one of the worst teams to go out on the road. You're starting to get monkeys off backs, things like this. You go and you get another win on the road. We've done the double in Ballybuffet this year. Not too many teams that have done that.
Yeah.
And so you're bringing that as a moral victory back for ourselves. Like I said, they probably just strolled around there with Bows tonight.
Yeah, right. And it's a mental barrier that they've gotten over as well, because like after last week's late defeat, I mean, look, I know you've got a week in between games. They're nearly better off maybe playing Monday night rather than waiting another week. But it was because it was always that dodgy. We said here last week, there's not a worse place to go than Finn Harps. There really isn't. I don't think there's a harder league match for anyone in the league than Finn Harps when they are looking for something as well. But Pingu is right. Like next week, John Russell Sligo Rovers. Like if he's there at the start of the season, who knows? Where they could be. They're an excellent football team. I personally think at Oriel Park, after winning tonight, I think we'd be too much for them. The crack start if Pats can turn Rovers over. That's the real, because like Pats are going to. This is their cup final coming up here. This is
it's right for them now on that game, isn't it?
Yeah. Is that on Friday night as well? Yeah,
that's Friday. Yeah, just a quick look at Pats fixture. That's Friday night.
Yeah, so that's like what we can only it's cliche. We can only concentrate on our result. The worst thing that can happen is if Pats get a run on Rovers, get some kind of result, and we don't hit the ground running at Sligo early doors at Oriel Park. But I honestly think we'll have too much of them. I don't think there'll be much in it, but I do think on the night with Oriel Park, a packed Oriel Park, I do think we can get a victory there. Now, not a pasting, but
so the way we were looking at it last week, that between this game and I suppose the Sligo game, we were thinking maybe 4 points for ourselves. If the Sligo game now is only a draw, we're still where we thought we would be, and we're hoping that Shamrock Rovers end up beating Pats, which would only give them 3 points. We'll have 4 points. We'll have a 2-point gap going into them having to go away to Sligo, and if they only get a draw there, then and we were to pick up the 3 points, we're back to this 4 to 5 point gap going into the last game of the season, which means we just can't be caught.
Yeah, and that's
just we said we were allowed one slip up, but the slip up would still need to pick up a point minimum.
Yeah,
we thought that could have been tonight because potential banana skin, a lot for Finn Harps to play for tonight, considering they're in a relegation fight. Tough for us on the road because considering our record, and we've gone and got the 3 points in a dogged win. We dug hard, I think, in that first half and really put it up to them. There's a lot to gain from that, isn't there? There really is.
Man, tonight's like I would have happily took a draw tonight before the game started. I said it here last week. I know people had texted in saying, "Oh no, I think we'll go there." When I didn't honestly think we could win at all. I was shocked when we were 2-0 up. I thought we'd absolutely hammer them then after that. But tonight's massive. It's a massive win. I mean, like you don't really want to draw against Sligo next week, but we did say 4 points over the first 2 games. You'd be delighted. But I didn't expect us to win tonight, so I'd like to think we'd kick on now and get something. But I do think after tonight, I think there'll just be a little bit more that kind of edginess will go now. Hopefully, you're hoping to be a bit more relaxed because they'll come up against, and not being disrespectful to Finn Harps, they'll come up against a footballing team next week. Like John Russell has them lads, they can ping a ball about, they can move a ball, and so it'll be a different kettle of fish, especially on our surface. And I think if I was to go from next week's match to the Bows game, I think if we can overturn them next week, I think we could absolutely mow the Bows the following week. I think we could absolutely give them a cricket score. But look, I think, like you said, the draw could be very comfortable because you'd automatically assume that Shamrock Rovers will beat Pats. So a draw is absolutely fantastic for us. But I think we'll beat them. After tonight's match, I think we'll beat them. I think we'll beat Pats or Sligo Rovers next Friday. Especially if it was away from home, it could be different. But at Oriel Park.
Yeah, Pingu, we were just saying that potentially we have a small window where we can drop points in this next run, but we still have to go undefeated in these last 4 games. We were talking about this was potential, banana skin coming up. Would a draw against Sligo at home, would it be the end of the world?
I don't think so, because it's hard to imagine Pats beating Rovers, So I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think it would be great it would be great for them to obviously to lose to Rovers next week. But I think like, again, going back, my prediction in the group chat was that we were gonna draw next week and then win at Bows to kind of get us over the line. I think Sligo. What will go in our favour against Sligo probably for me is there's no easy way to get from Sligo to Dundalk. So that trip, that drive was fucking horrible. So, and I would assume that they're going to just do it all in a day, and that's not going to be a nice trip over. Like, I used to hate it whenever we'd be going over to games over there, on Friday afternoons or whatever, So that's one thing to put into consideration. But no, I don't think it's the end of the world.
As long as Pats don't pick up anything in Tallaght.
Yeah, it's in our hands now at the end of the day for the most part. If we can get a win next week and get a win against Bows, it's game over more or less. You know what I mean? Because I don't see Pats winning the next 2. I don't see them winning both of the next 2 games that they have. And I think every Dundalk podcast, as optimistic as they may be after having a couple of days to think about what they're saying, I think every Dundalk podcast would feel the same. We don't want it to go down to the Derry game, the last game of the season,
Yeah, and I think about our tricky fixture is the last game of the season towards, I think, Pats having theirs, in the next fixture. It's probably just the wrong timing for them. The league won't be wrapped up for Shamrock Rovers at that stage. So the fact that they still need, and there's been, the talk there during the week was obviously that their focus is on retaining the title because they want to be back in Europe and trying to compete again next year. So Stephen Bradley really needs to go out in his next 2 fixtures and get wins to justify performances in Europe there recently for them. So they have a lot on that. The home team is going to be expecting them to possibly wrap up a title and get it, get their 5-point lead going into the last 2 fixtures for them. So you're hoping all that aligns that Shamrock Rovers, and dare I say this, will do us a favour.
Yeah, no, look, I still think everything is in our favour at the minute. As you say, I think we've probably gone today, even though the team that we were playing is down at the bottom of the league. Today was probably one of the tougher of the 4 games that we're going to have, So we've got a win there, because I think one of you said earlier, nobody wants to actually go and play in Ballybuffet. Again, it's a horrible place to even get to in the first place. It's freezing when you're there, so nobody wants to go there and play. So, I just think that Pats have a tougher 2 weeks than we do. If we can get 4 points out of the next 2 games, I think we're wrapped up in third. And it's hard to believe that going for third is this exciting as well, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, we're used to last year was just like, let's just wrap up the season, let's not get relegated, because that was the fear around this time last year, and
that was in March.
Yeah, and then we've been going for league titles and everything, and this is a different feeling, but it's also, there's a bit of excitement. It reminds me a little bit of when we won the league in 2014, and do you remember we went on a run where we couldn't get a win until the last game of the season against Cork? Do you remember there was 3 or 4 games where we drew? I think we went up to Bray and it was absolutely hammering it down, and I think it was 1-1 or something like that. And it just has that kind of feeling about it. So I'm excited for the next 2 weeks. You know, but I'd love it to be a case that Pats have to go to Sligo to get a win on the Saturday. You know, I'd love it to be like they can't lose that game against Sligo. I think that would be the ideal scenario. Or even that game against Sligo hopefully is irrelevant. You know, hopefully we've already got it sewn up at that point.
Fingers crossed. Finger, we better let you go.
Yeah, I bid you adieu, gentlemen. I've caused enough trouble for tonight.
Go on. Talk to you. Thanks.
Yeah.
No problem. Just
for that.
I see a comment in there with Jason Crawley just kind of saying that, you know, perhaps that last minute defeat by Pats last year had been a kick up the arse to go and get this win tonight. Without that last minute win, would we have done this? Because we would have said, the gap is enough. You know, what you wouldn't have wanted, here's what could have happened is we go take a 7-point lead. Then we go and be lackadaisy going to Ballybuffet. We end up getting defeated. The gap's back down to 4. And our form, like Pingus just mentioned, that we just can't buy a win because, you know, we don't have that drive in us. We think we have it wrapped up, and you're limping across the line if you don't get pipped. Towards this way, I think we've got to kick up the arse early into these last 4 fixtures. And then now it's like, well, we know if we slip up, Pats are going to be on us, so we can't afford to slip up. Could be something in that.
Yeah, like, and we've had a few, like, you know, kick up the arse during the season where we didn't really hit the ground running after. We didn't have any answer for it afterwards. But I think, yeah, he's right. I mean, I was really worried with tonight, as I said before, but that last minute, whatever been bet at half time, you know, if the game was over maybe 60 minutes in, but a last minute sucker punch is, like we said it here last week, the podcast was like a wake. The first 5 or 6 minutes of the podcast last week was just, you could just mute it and fast forward on Spotify. But it was just, yeah, he's right. That kind of, we don't want that to happen again. You know, we got to hit the ground and we've got to show people what we're about. And I don't think there's a better place to do it than Ballybuffet. I mean, with the exception of going to Tala and turning over Rovers, I don't think there's any, because it's such a tough play. We just don't seem to hit the ground running there at all. A lot of clubs don't. But yeah, it's definitely, that's why I think we'll win on Friday night. I think it'll carry on now. I mean, look, I think I said this earlier in the season when we had a bit of a run going. But I just think they've come too close now. I think, you know, it's in their hands. You saw it at the end of the game there tonight, like going for it with the crowd, whatever crowd that was there, and it was like, you know, we think we'd, you know, won a cup or something, but they know how big tonight is and how big of a step up it is for next week. And I think Sligo coming to town and playing the way they do will suit Dundalk. You know, but yeah, it is right. It should give the injection, and it should be exactly what they needed.
Sligo obviously can't catch us now for 4th.
Yeah,
gap's big, so that's unattainable for them. Is it a thing where Sligo are going to have to look and assess where they are going forward for next year? You know, I'm just wondering, could it be something like that comes here and that might just go into the manager's mind for them? Russell and can think, well, I might mix it up. Could I play that player in a different position? Now, I know that's also gives an opportunity possibly then to Pats the following week, but I'm just thinking on the road might be a chance to make those changes towards at home. He'd be probably thinking, I'm going to have the fans on my back here. If I look like I'm tinkering here, they could be on me straight away.
Yeah, and there's an argument for that. There's probably 2 ways of looking at it. He has that Pats connection as well, going back. You know, one of the best midfielders, I think, in the last probably 15 years to play in the League of Ireland, and very underrated. But he has that little Pats connection. So you could go either way. I mean, I think they're looking at the table there. They're probably a couple of points clear of for Bows as well. But I don't think Bows are going to pick up any points between now and the end of the season. But yeah, it could be a thing. He does it.
Hard to know.
Would he let his Pat's connection kind of sway that a little bit? I don't know. I don't know if you know, is he in contract for next year, management wise? I don't know if he's just in the end of the season or not. So
I'm not
could be a lot riding on it, yeah. But yeah, they could do something like that. I don't know if they will. Maybe early doors he might play his strongest one and then kind of nitpick as he goes. Depending how much we're giving him a hiding by half time. But I fully expect Dundalk to really come out next week and, get at them early. I mean, I just think it'll suit us the way Sligo play. I just think that, we have some really good footballers in that squad. I know we talk about Ryan every week, but there's some really good ball players. I mean, like Sam Bowen, for instance, he can go kind of a bit off the rails as a defender, but as an actual footballer, he's actually a very technically good footballer.
Yeah.
So players like that, and I know obviously Dickie Kelly's missing, who would frighten most left backs in the league. But I just think, like, even just for example, we've got Davy Mack playing tonight. I don't think he'd play next week. I don't think he'd start the game next week. I think he'll go a little bit of a different route because of the opposition.
Yeah.
But coming off the bench against a former team again, it goes in our favour. And I just think we'll have too much to him. But you could be right. He could come in and say, look, it's kind of a hiding to nothing. But I just think that little Pat's badge in the background there, he played for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I just think he might just think I might try and get one over here. Depends how friendly he is with Tim Clancy, of course.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing then that plays through, it depends how the fixtures go. So obviously, our toughest away fixture in particular, but probably our toughest fixture is our Derry one at the end. The title might be past them at that stage.
Yeah.
They may have an FAI Cup to look for, and we've seen it with Dundalk teams when there's been that little game where either a title's been wrapped up or we've been in and out, but there was a cup final to pay for it. We found it very hard to get up for that game in particular.
Yeah,
it's been a very last chance garage for lads to have a shot at a final. Yeah. And it's it's one that could go either way, but I'm not convinced that there's going to be a lot on it for Derry. But in particular, what you would want for us is to have everything right on that one.
That like the nightmare scenario is we go out next week and we maybe draw and Pats beat Rovers. That's really a nightmare for everybody, and it's for Derry as well, because like you say, if they have a chance of a cup final, depending how it goes, if it's all over, do they risk it? Do they risk injuries? I know people want to play into the cup final, play their part. I'd say Derry have a settled enough squad now. He probably knows who will play in a cup final barring any injuries, but do you risk players the week before? If you've nothing else, I don't. Look, there's always a little bit of bite now between Derry and Dundalk because of transfers over the last season, what happened with that player in the summer. But I don't see them risking too many. But then again, with the squad they have, they are, like, I expected them, like, if anybody listened to the early podcast, I didn't expect Rovers to be in the title race at all. They've shocked me completely. I thought Derry would actually run away with it. But I think that it all depends on the next. It actually all depends probably on next week. It really depends on what Pats can do at Rovers. If they happen to get something there, it'll change the way Higgins thinks. But with the cup final, coming up, we're just assuming they're going to go to a cup final here. But if they do, I don't see him risking, unless there's something riding in the league, I don't see him risking all the squad. So you might not see the obvious ones, but I think you'll definitely see Connolly because he'll insist on playing. So you got to get at him.
So does next week now ends up being the real pivotal one on how everything will go, how the title's going to go, and how European football's going to go? Yeah,
like as big as this week is the fact that we've won now. Even if it was a draw next week, you could say, right, okay, but the fact that we've won now, I think next week's game, although I think we'd win, it's massive. And I'd love to be like, it's a pity the Tala game's not on the night after, so you could watch it on the box while after watching the Dundalk match.
Box in the screen.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I just think because of the running now, I just think next week could be pivotal. Yeah, it really could be. And the lads have to go out and try and win the game, like get a result minimum. But you want to try and win. You can't worry about what's going on down the road. Yeah, it's unlikely, on paper that Pats get anything. But I mean, if they're ever going to turn up for the books and really overrun a much better team, they'll need to do it next Friday night, because I think that's their game of the season there. Yeah. They're expecting us to get something out of most of the matches that we've coming up. So that's really there. If they can get something there, that's a bonus, because they've probably counted it as a non-entity when it comes to points. Yeah. So if they can get something out of it, it's a massive bonus. Like a draw for them will feel like a win on the night.
I suppose just to wrap up the match tonight, Gally, from your own point of view, who would you put down as man of the match? I think we'll just pick a random comment tonight for our winner.
I had two for me. Like, look, Ryan's done really well. I thought Andy Boyle had a really solid game. Really, really kind of like, I don't want to sound really cliche, but he turned back the time there. I thought he was excellent. But as Pingu mentioned earlier in the shot, I thought Lewis McCarry was. I thought he had a fantastic game. Nobody really had a poor match.
No.
It's a long time since we even mentioned Nathan Shepherd, but he has nothing really to do in all the games we've done over the last couple of weeks, and all the the goals. He hasn't actually had a lot to do in matches, so he doesn't really come into it at the minute.
Yeah.
But for me, if I'm punting for someone, because he's been out for a while, he's come back and he scored. I go for McCarry tonight. It would have been probably the first night I've gone for Andy Boyle, but I just think with the goal tonight coming back in, I think McCarry for me tonight would be the one.
Yeah, it's funny. I wouldn't be too far off yourself as well. I thought, like I mentioned earlier on, probably Andy Boyle's best game in a long time for us as well. I just thought very solid, very commanding. Actually thought Alfie Lewis had a really, really good game too. He was unlucky he didn't want to hit the post early in the first half. He just seemed to be turning into space this time. Before this, I always thought he kept turning into danger. Or, he was never on the front foot, but he was actually the type of player we needed, especially, when you miss a player like Greg Sloggett, you need someone to step up. And I felt tonight he really stepped up into that. Once again, is it because Sam Bowen was playing in that holding midfielder role in behind him, so he knew he was more comfortable going forward with the ball? I don't know. It seemed that way in particular. That the formation was allowing him just that extra space to get on the ball and really go at it. And I think I think that was the way to go. And so Alfie Lewis was there. If he probably hadn't got a goal tonight in particular, or had set up one of the goals, I would have said he was probably the outstanding candidate. So on the basis of that, I'd probably go with you then and say Lewis McCarry for not being in the squad, being playing out of not one of his natural positions, but he was out of position that we've seen him play this year in this team.
Yeah, well, when you mention Alfie Lewis,
he come in with the right attitude, which is the thing that really impressed me tonight.
Yeah, like I know there's a comment there for Alfie, and that we talked about Alfie last week. I think a couple of weeks ago. Technically gifted, he's excellent, but he needs that kind of midfielder. So that Bowen effect tonight and Sloggett when he's there, he needs that kind of break up, and Benson when he comes in to kind of let him run loose. So not a free roll, but to let him kind of command midfield, get the ball moving, make things happen. And like I think he's a fantastic signing for us. I think he's an excellent player. He probably went unnoticed a little bit tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, a top talent to have in the ranks, really, really is.
Probably a shout for Davy McMillan as well. Just being so industrious and being involved in that in the second goal and leading the line like he did, and he harassed and stuff like that. I think it's a top. It's one of them. When we seem to put in a performance, you could probably, and we're probably actually talking right through the spine of the team here. We're talking two centre backs, we're talking central midfielder, we're talking a man up top here. Right through the centre of our team was so strong tonight.
Yeah, and we haven't had that
a lot of times when we play well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier in the season with the ex centre half pair and now that we used to have, and that spine was always rigid. It was always, barring any injuries, we always had that. With Paul Doyle was there as well, and Dickie Kelly on the right is out injured at the minute, and then you've obviously Pat up front, and we've kind of been a bit disjointed over the last couple of weeks. But tonight was I was probably a surprise. Like when we seen the team, we thought maybe three at the back. We didn't really know what way it was going to go, but and McCarry on paper is a centre half. He probably doesn't look the size to build for, but he is a centre half. And yeah, look, I just thought he was excellent. Whether or not he plays there, next week against Sligo, it all depends who the opposition is, who it suits. But there'd be no. It means you get to squeeze him and Mountney into the same team instead of putting McCarry in at left back. You get to put the two of them on the team, so you have that marauder and fullback and John Mountney and a solid player in McCarry. And it's not a perfect combination, but it's definitely an option going forward.
Yeah. Well, look, I think we'll all kind of agree on that then, that Lewis McCarry for a man of the match. So as I said, that we'll probably just pick a random comment then tonight. So coming in from the YouTube page, it seems tonight. So Sean Newbury, congratulations. You're the winner of our Tony's Pizzeria 15-inch pizza on ourselves. And just go in, it's from the podcast here, and you have yourself a free pizza. Scally always says, throw something else nice in there.
Get some chips. We Diet Coke now. Big curry sauce. Starving.
And thanks to Tony's Pizzeria for the continued sponsorship on this podcast. Gally, something that probably with results and frustration perhaps over the last few things that we've completely forgot to address, and something we've all filled in. I know we were talking about ourselves, was the survey obviously sent out by the club over the past few weeks. We were wondering what sort of interaction, Martin Connolly at the press box show hinted that this survey was going to come out, that they were trying to get feedback from supporters. And so then it comes out, it's probably multi-layered, multifaceted. Nice to see a little mention for the old podcast in there from Rome's point of view. What did you make of it? What's your takeaways, I suppose, from the survey, and what do you think about the club even engaging like this? I
think it's great. I think it's a great way of gauging people. I think it's especially for new owners coming in. I know Martin Connolly and Andy's obviously been there before, but the likes of Stats coming in, and Sean Connor and Alan Clark, and even the new manager, even the new setup on the touchline and underage managers, all that. We've got lady girls football now as well, so everybody's got to gauge where they are and what people are thinking. And it kind of read to me like in the back of their mind they kind of have plans, and they're trying to see, right, let's see what, how we can kind of not kind of I don't know what the best word is used, but let's see if we can kind of infuse it with the fans' ideas, see what they gauge. Like if you had went for a simple question and answering, because you had the multi options, that really opened up the survey for everybody. And it's not like you only got like 2 or 3 basic options. You got plenty of options, and it covered all bases. I thought it was excellent. Like, some of the questions in particular about stadium or match, hospitality. I know, because it's funny because we had people on last year talking about they wanted to bring up the match hospitality, and then the hospitality that was there last year is now gone. So it's interesting to see what people actually, we've now had foresight or hindsight on both kind of sides of it. So it's interesting that people will now have an actual opinion on everything. You got to air your grievances, you got to elaborate on any comments. I mean, you can't really ask for much more. They can't, for years we've been talking about engaging the communities, getting into the community and stuff. And, with the internet now, it's the best way to do it. And, the fact that I'd be interested to know how many people listened to the podcast. I'd like to get the results on that one. But look, I think it's fantastic. I don't know whether you do a yearly one. I don't think so. I think probably every second, third year, maybe as things progress. But I thought it was excellent. I think it was a little slow coming out, but I think, I mean, they've had the whole season to look at it as well. Fans have had the whole season to take it all in. I thought it's a great idea. I thought it was excellent. Yeah.
Like, I suppose in the recent few weeks there, we've seen, the new scoreboard back, like a new one operational now, which, is potentially shows replays of goals and stuff from LOI TV across it, interactive graphics, far better than the older scoreboard that used to be there. So we've seen, I suppose, the owners are willing to invest. The next thing is where or what does that investment look like? Because I suppose the question was in there, do you want to go to a greenfield site? Would you prefer to see Oriel Park upgraded, I suppose, which would be what I would always want. I want to stay in Oriel Park, because I always think, as great as, Longford Town's ground and stuff like that is, it's just so far out of the town that you lose that bit of connection, away fans just jump on the train, walk straight to Oriel Park straight after, we've seen our supporters do walks from, the town centre right away to Oriel Park. You go outside the town, you lose all of that. They get a lovely flash new stadia, but you lose everything else with it. I don't want to see it. Also this week now we've seen, Peter Fitzpatrick has just pulled one of the absolute strokes that ever there was.
Never she didn't like it, we leave.
Massive 14 million gap to be plugged there, and has found a loophole in, people who are willing to pay for visas to come to Ireland will all pay, I think it's like 36 people or something like that, will all pay 400,000 to 600,000 each to as a donation for this. I mean, that's how you do this. You also bring in people now who will have a vested interest in the club as well going forward. So your potential fans coming on board.
And then your sponsorship revenue and you're spreading, like, everybody knows GA, but you're opening GA up to the masses. Then you're kind of opening up to different. I mean, maybe of Irish heritage, but different areas of the world, and it read like it was just mental, but it's a masterstroke. I mean, it's something that I think somebody had mentioned that somewhere in Meath done the same, a club. I'm not really sure. I can't really remember the full details of it, but I thought when I seen the headline, I think it was I think I actually read Dan O'Donnell's first today, but it sounded crazy. I said, this probably won't work. There's no way he'll get away with this. But when you read it, it's such a straightforward idea. It's such a simple. It's a simple tactic to use and a loophole to get this done in over line 14 and a half, whatever it is, million. It sounds crazy. It sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like he's done this Trojan work since he's gone in.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're going to get their stadium in. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic facility from the sounds of it. I mean, like, if he could get up to Oriel and talk to the lads and see how he gets on and what the story is, now whether we need that kind of money, I don't know. But yeah, it's genius. I mean, like, and it's unique. It's fantastic for Loud GA. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to hold my hands up and say I'm a massive Loud GA supporter. I'm not. But I mean, it puts Loud GA back on the map for the way they're doing it. Everybody's talking about it, and I mean, it really could be an absolute master. It could start that ball rolling on other people doing it as well. It could be the first of many, and I mean, no better man to sort it out as well. I mean, it's crazy to do it. Like, they have 30, I think it's 38 or 39 investors. But I mean, so what's, like, give them 5 seats each. What about it? I mean, it's just so clever. It's a way of cutting out all that messing in the middle, looking for stuff, and it's right. Let's get this done. The money's there into the bank. Let's get rolling on it.
Underlining all of that, I always felt though that, whether the money was found by one of the sporting organisation bodies, as in Sports Ireland or the GA, underpinning all of that was the fact that the people of Louth rolled in behind 2 housing drawers and they raised, what was it, 1.5 million or something like that.
Yeah.
Cleared all the ground and got everything. Very similar, I suppose, to Finn Harps and on their new ground. I think when the supporters and the club organisation rolls in and has done X amount of work, for that to have just been wasted would have a horrible knock-on effect to the sporting funding bodies. And I felt that was always the ace in the pocket that Fitzer had. It was like, well, have we done all this for nothing? You told us we were going to do this. Yeah. Why hasn't Louth County Council come up with money? Why hasn't the GA come up with money? Why hasn't the Sports Council come up? We've done our bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when it comes to Oriel Park, we haven't really, as fans, we haven't put our hands in our pocket and said, we did talk before about potential fundraising opportunities for the club when we talked about Sligo Rovers with their wall with plaques on it, and they were easily raising, in profit. I think it was something around like 80,000 at a time. I mean, you would have thought if there was an opportunity to do something, we talked about plaques maybe along the walkway on the way into Oriel Park, everyone could have it there, or a mural, we could do something. There was loads of opportunity, even when they were redoing the puddle in the town end, when they were putting the cement down, could we not have put some sort of bricks down or something on the ground, and everyone could have put their name on it with a raised money? If we had gone as supporters and had a substantial amount of money, you're probably talking about, a 6-figure sum here, probably 100,000 or more, and said, go draw plans for something maybe in the town end, or we're improving facilities, toilet facilities, or putting a roof over one of the sides of the main stand or something like that. I feel that if you've gone and you've done that, it puts pressure back on these governing bodies to say, well, they've done something, we can't do nothing. Fitzer found a fantastic loophole But once again, he already has that land secured, plans drawn up, partial of the funding secured to get that ball rolling. It would have been a waste of everyone's time if something didn't happen on that. Towards at the moment, that's what I'd like to see out of this survey is, okay, everybody wants a greenfield site or everyone wants Oriel Park to be redeveloped. Let's start making plans to fund, to get plans drawn up for a new redevelopment of Oriel Park or a new stand in one of the areas. This is much it's going to cost, but we need a contribution from the fans of X amount. And you would say someone like, hopefully the 1903 can roll in behind as one of the the biggest supporters groups within the club. Really need to kick in then, I believe, and kind of say, right, this is right, let's start doing this. This is a 50 euro contribution, but you're going to have a piece of Dundalk FC history. Be part of it now. Roll in when and where you can.
Yeah, and
we're holding over a big check, saying, here's the money that we've put into this. You're expecting to see. I'm just saying, Davy Max, the bloody architect, who's on your payroll. Let's get something drawn up for one of these areas, and let's start. Can we break the ground? And I think that's the real key ground. Fitzer went and cleared the ground, broke it with there, got the photo opportunities with everybody to say, this is what we're going to do. There's no really rolling back from that.
Yeah, exactly. But that the pressure's gone that high that there's no hiding spot there. Now, the elephant in the room with Oriel Park, it goes back to the ownership and all that kind of crack. But I mean, I don't think that's a massive problem. I mean, like, you can rent the facility, you can do it up and rent the facility. It's ideally nobody wants to leave it, so it's not.
The owners are paying for parts of the money, and the rest is coming not from the owners. What difference does it make?
Yeah, exactly, and that's like
out of pocket, and they're potentially going to have a raised revenue because I think I was listening. It could have been the press box, but we probably have a ceiling now on our attendance, which is about probably 2,000 to 2,500. There was 5,000 in Inchicore tonight.
Yeah, great.
Like, this is the difference. We're missing out on potential double our revenue, match day revenue. So as a club going forward, if we're to attract new fans in, we need an increase in attendance. We're not going to get that in the current state that is Oriel Park.
Yeah.
And for all our dominance and everything in European and domestic adventures over the past while, we've nothing to show for that. Any new fans we've gained, we could have lost. They could come in and come out now. If we were potentially winning an opportunity for winning a league next year, you could have more fans back in. But what's going to hold them there has to be good facilities. It has to be adequate terrace or seating opportunities. More revenue opportunities for the club with regards merchandise, with regards shops and beverages, things like this. All of that needs to be increased. And the only way we do that is investment now. And I think this is one of these sliding door moments.
It is, exactly, yeah.
But where are we going to get the money from? Because now we got to think outside the box, because Loud GA talking outside the box and they've got their money.
Yeah, and you're hoping, like you'd mentioned there, you're hoping this survey has been put out there as kind of like a feeler, kind of like, right, let's see what we're dealing with. Let's see what people are looking for. I mean, if you just think of the land around Oriel Park, we spoke about this at the podcast last year as well. You've the grammar pitch. I don't know who owns it. It's still the grammar pitch that they train on. You've got Eamon Heine Park at the back, and you've got the field to the left of it now. That's, as far as I know, it's up for sale. So, like, I mean, I don't know what that cost. I don't know what the price is. I don't know, but is there something there you could say, right, let's redevelop the whole space? Sorry?
Did the Grammar not buy that?
I don't know. The one to the left behind the garage, is that now for sale? The old football pitch used to be in there.
Grammar, Heine Park, that's the Grammar definitely bought a plot of land in and around Oriel Park.
Yeah, like even that in itself is madness.
We developed that.
Yeah.
Now, here's a potential opportunity. Let's roll in with the Grammar.
Yeah.
And let's increase, and then the Grammar get use of
exactly. Yeah. It's so simple.
Park isn't going to be used all the time.
Yeah.
Is there a potential way to share some of the costs between private school funding?
Yeah, it's like it can't be that complicated to come up with something like this. I mean, it saves all, like, why move to, like you say, why move to a greenfield site? Why move out of the way where the infrastructure's not there, all you have access to? Like, I know there's talk of out to the racetrack, but, you've got the M1 motorway, but like you say, the boys can't come off the train.
No.
Will you get a bus service out there? Will you get, like, are taxis going to drive out there to take people in from town on a wet night? I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's just, it's far out. People don't walk to the dog track for the dogs, and there's a path the whole way there. They're not going to go into town for a pint and we'll walk out to the dog. The infrastructure isn't there, and you've got that land potential around, and that's what I'm saying. I'm hoping it read like, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but to me it read like, right, let's get a specific set of questions together. We need to, this is what we're thinking. These are the answers we need. These are the questions we need answering to. Let's see what fans are thinking, and let's feed off it. You're hoping it doesn't just fall by the wayside. Oh, sure, look, it's great. We've got loads of people answering these questions. I do think there's something in it. I just felt it was going that way. They were asked about the infrastructure. Would you prefer a site? Would you prefer to do up this, blah, 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 blah. You're hoping now, you're there, like we brought up Fitzer as well, you're hoping that could be a potential, right, we have to get going here. We've been talking about a new stadium for a long time. Loud have only been talking about a new stadium. They really only put the crux of this in when Fitzer got the gig, really. I mean, I know it was the plan I was in before, but I mean, he's really steamrolled this and got this up. And like you say, these photo opportunities, this absolutely torturing people, it got him somewhere, and it's got him to this level. And maybe he needs to come in and have a discussion. I don't know, like not to back it, but come in and show, right, this is how we done it. Let's get into a better man at the minute. Like we mentioned, Finn Harps set up last year, a guy in the radio, I can't remember his name there, but how they were going to give the Finn Harps Stadium to the Donegal League. Yeah, and the women set up Finn Harps, have an under 17s team coming in for next year. So it's going to be like a municipal stadium. It's going to have everything in it. Yeah. Fantastic. And that's when we're playing behind, when we're behind that kind of club, and that's not being disrespectful. We're miles behind at the minute, so far behind, and we shouldn't be, because of the we've European money over the years went wherever, but we've had that status. Like, we were full show when we got the European run a couple of years. We were going to have a Stephen Kenny stand. That's the level we were talking about. We're going to say, well, this will be fine. This is going to be great, but like nothing's come of it. No. And it'd be so, like you say, it'd be such a waste to not take advantage of kind of this new ownership. And I genuinely think that's what they've been after. I genuinely think this is why this has come out. They're hoping that it might start the ball rolling on something. I mean, you might hear some news maybe later next year, or there might be some plans in the pipeline and stuff like that. And I think the fact that it's the local ownership back there, I think it's the perfect time to get something like this going. I think the survey was well timed. It's coming at the end of the season, a couple of games to go, get the buzz talking over pre-season, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, I just think, as fans, it's just something you don't want to be. I don't think we should be waiting for everything to happen. I think we should have been, right now, I believe we should be doing some sort of fundraising all the time for the improvement of Oriel Park, or the improvement of facilities, and that's all that money is ever ring fenced for, and we should be topping that up all the time. So when it came to this, what do we do next? Well, we have a pot of money. Let's make this start happening here, and then let the owners make an equal contribution or whatever to the fans are willing to do, and then the rest has to be sporting organisations or funding, government funding or whatever. And thereafter, look, it's probably something, Gally, we probably haven't give the full amount of time to, and perhaps on the next show, depending on the result.
But yeah, when we beat them next week, we beat Sligo next week, we'll talk about it again.
Exactly. I think the rest of the lads, I'm sure, would like to have an opinion on it too. I think otherwise we're pretty good. We'll start wrapping up where we are tonight. I think, as I said, looking at everything, I should be able to just bring up the table here. Yeah, there we have our so table as is. Obviously, Rovers still on top, haven't played yet. They don't play till Sunday in Hednagame Park. Derry still 5 points behind them, but obviously both of them still have to play a game. Then ourselves holding on to third on 59 points and a goal better off than Pats in fourth place on 58 points. And then it's a pretty sizable gap now, I suppose, back into fifth to Sligo Rovers. And the only things that's probably changed tonight, obviously, Finn Harps have now played a game more than UCD, but are on equal points. That's pretty much where they are.
And yeah, that's what your Sligo that far behind your thoughts of them maybe playing a week. You just never know. It just depends on what Russell wants to be at. But yeah, look, I think we'll beat them anyway. It'll be grand.
We'll wait and see. Thanks, as we mentioned earlier on, to Tony's Pizzeria for our pizza giveaway. Thank you to Player Fit. And I just put a notice on the screen there that the podcast shop is now reopened again till the end of the series. These tops that both of us are wearing tonight, hoodies and beanie hats, and that are available in multiple sizes on the website as well. So if you want to pick up any of the merchandise on that, it's back available till the end of the season. So please feel free to support the podcast in that way if you can. As always, thank you to Dundalk Village for the overall sponsorship of the podcast and the continued sponsorship for the full season as well. That's been great from Donald Green. Thank you, Gali. Thank you, Pingu, earlier on, for everyone. I don't know how the hell we end. I didn't even think about this podcast till 2 seconds ago.
We could probably go with something if because it's on the line now, third spot against Pats. We could probably go back to our roots, and maybe we could have something like if there's no Pats, we'll party.